All right, everybody, here we are again at Contractor Radio. I am your host, Jim Johnson, also the head coach at Contractor Coach Pro. And our whole entire job is to help you get control of your business so you can grow your business and achieve that personal and financial freedom you were chasing when you started your business. One of the key components of that is leadership and being able to communicate effectively as a leader. And we have a guest today that is at a whole different level of that versus kind of our blue collar trades approach to leadership. I'm super excited to bring him on. He's going to have a different spin than you may have seen before. I got the opportunity to talk with him last week about something completely different, and we were able to get into some conversation about leadership. And it was just one of those things like, I got to get this guy on the show because he's going to bring immense value to our listeners. It's not going to be one that you want to sit down or not pay attention to, maybe even take some notes while you listen to this podcast today. And before we get to our guest, we got to pay the bills. We're going to throw on our sponsor, one of our favorites, Get the Referral.
Who doesn't love getting more referrals? GTR will make your referral game stronger than ever with our 4-step process. First, engage with customers through job status updates and push notifications. Then, motivate your advocates to send referrals and earn rewards. Third, track and manage all of your results through your company's dashboard. And finally, sit back and enjoy achieving up to 40 times ROI. GTR is the #1 referral platform for contractors, so book your demo today at getthereferral.com.
If you guys haven't checked out Get the Referral, I highly suggest checking the show notes there, clicking on the link to their website, setting a time for a demo, because referrals are the basis of our business. It's how we protect the clients that we've brought on board. Is why we create Raving Fans, is to get those referrals. So use a tool that allows you to manage them, update them, keep your tasks straight on them, and reward them whenever they give you a referral. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership, and I have an amazing guest today. He's the founder of Climb Leadership. He is a best-selling author on Amazon. He talks about emotional intelligence, communication, a lot of things that we really need in our businesses these days, because as you guys know, we talk about this all the time. 2 reasons that most companies go out of business is a lack of financial acumen and a lack of leadership. So let's bring on our special guest today, Chuck Garcia. Hey, Chuck, welcome aboard, man.
No, thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I got this opportunity to talk to you a week ago, and you were kind enough to say, I know you're a busy guy. I mean, you've got your own radio show, you've written Climb to the Top book, you do your own coaching of leaders, and so could you tell our audience a little bit of your background and kind of what got you to this level of doing what you do?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, when coming out of college, I was a finance major in college, and I had 3 objectives. The first was to make my parents proud. The second was to be financially independent as fast as I could because of all the love and funding they gave to me. And then the third was a career on Wall Street. And it all came through. Before I did what I do, Jim, I spent the better part of 25 years with 3 magnificent companies. But I want to highlight one of them. It was a couple years out of college. I joined this company that no one ever heard of. And I was 190th employee, and the company was called Bloomberg. And it was located in Midtown Manhattan. I'm a New Yorker. And somebody had told me about this guy named Mike Bloomberg, who was bringing a different way of how information is consumed in the world of Wall Street. When I met him, it was almost as if like someone met Google early on in their career without knowing who they were. And in the world of finance, Bloomberg became a powerhouse, a juggernaut in the world of information between buyers and sellers. So as early on in the company, it became pretty apparent this is a magnificent organization that has, to your point, as you introduced the show, it has the financial acumen. It had that because it had pretty deep pockets. And it had a level of communication and emotional intelligence no one taught me in college was possible. So I spent 14 years at that organization. The last half of it, for 7 years, I was the public spokesman for the company, which the job responsibility was it put me on stage all over the world as the company was building and serving the financial service community around the world. I was on stage in probably 50 different countries and probably in front of millions of people if I add them all up. What I didn't know at the time was being in that profession that I didn't even know that was a job was setting the basis for ultimately what I've come to do for the last 8 years.
I would say that's pretty impressive. Bloomberg, like I know I see them on TV, right? It's a real company. You know, you don't always see us as contractors, and we kind of tend to look down on ourselves because of that type of thing. But we really do something that we should be ultimately very proud of. You know, putting a roof over somebody's head, protecting their homes, keeping bugs out of their houses, whatever it is. We do something that we can be extremely proud of too, and lead very well. You mentioned something there that was a couple of words put together that I don't think we hear a whole lot in our industry, but emotional intelligence. You said that was one of the keys to Bloomberg being so successful. Could you explain that concept to our crowd listening today?
Yeah, you bet. Well, let me just to put it into context. After my many years at Bloomberg, I am what's called an executive coach now, where I work in the service of many Wall Street companies teaching emotional intelligence. I'm also on faculty at Columbia University, where I teach in the Graduate School of Engineering, where I teach communications and emotional intelligence. But the reason I said that, Jim, is what I found. The college model teaches you that the mark of success is you learn something, you cram it, you take an exam, you regurgitate it, and whoever scores the highest, that's the mark of success. And then I got to this company that didn't give a damn where you went to college, didn't care what your grades were. What they cared about is much more cultural than I ever considered. That the real magic in building that company didn't necessarily have to do with the features and the functions of the things that we were selling. It had to do with the things you don't see, the intangibles of how people collaborate, how they communicate, how they adapt to ever-changing circumstances. There was nothing to cram, there was nothing to memorize, there was nothing to examine, but being in the presence of people who are strategic and intentional about the kind of culture they want to build in order to recruit what they believe are the best employees, that's what I learned. And by that emotional intelligence, what I found is the leadership team, and I was in my early 20s or in mid 20s when I joined, it was a team that was constantly communicating, that was always checking in with their employees, that never took us for granted. They fed us. They did everything they could to ensure that we would succeed. And this isn't what I thought the business world of Wall Street was. I thought you just show up, you fight like hell, and whoever has the most money at the end of the day wins. There's a little bit of that, but this was a company that was serving that. It wasn't the Wolf of Wall Street. We were serving companies that were learning to make money from their capital. But what I learned is this is leadership. Oh my God, this wasn't taught me in a book. This wasn't anything that I could have learned by reading. What we learned was resilience, adaptability, being creative, the need to be persuasive. In fact, Jim, what it hit me as I was emerging, I had read this wonderful book written in 1936 called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie that most of us in this world have read. And I said, oh my God, this is it. This is what he's talking about. It's right here in this company. Oh my God, I thought this was a dream, that this was just something he wrote about that was fun. Oh my God, I read the book. The company was the very embodiment of the 30 principles that Dale Carnegie communicated in his book, which in the modern world has been known and is now labeled by a Harvard social scientist named Daniel Goleman that he calls emotional intelligence, the ability to address, to read and to control and understand your emotions and the emotions of others so that we can connect with other people to feel their pain and ultimately to form coalitions and communities.
That might be the best explanation I've ever heard. Now, Bloomberg, like I'm assuming you knew him. Am I correct?
Oh, very well. Yeah, I consider him a mentor. Yeah, definitely.
Did he ever like cop to the fact that he read the book and he said, okay, that book is a really good book. We're going to start doing that stuff in our company?
I don't know if we ever talked about it. He was one of those guys that didn't even need to espouse theories, practices. He just behaved. And when you want to know about a person, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And when you're in the presence of someone who leads by example, interestingly enough, when you begin to model and mirror the behaviors of the people you look up to, before you know it, in a way, and this is how we form accents, this is why we wear uniforms on a field with teammates, you begin to look alike, talk alike, walk alike. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a way where you begin to unify efforts on a common mission, where you identify and you relate to the people that are around you because they look like me, they walk like me, they talk like me. But here was the best part, Jim. We were encouraged to assert our own styles, to be independent in our way, but there were certain things that were not negotiable. And that was the value system, the work ethic. In fact, he Jim, was the first that once told me, I once made a mistake. I forget what I did. And I apologized for it. And he almost dismissed me with that. He said, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Be afraid of not learning from them. So he was very good about granting the permission to fail. As long as you tried, you didn't have an ethical breach. He always talked about and led by example that the innovations in companies come as a result of getting a lot of things wrong before you get a few things right. That's an emotionally intelligent leader because they have given us the psychological safety to be different, to talk different, to act different, as long as it was in the boundaries of the culture of honesty and communication. I thank the day that I walked into that place because I was now learning the things I never learned in a textbook and the importance of the soft skills that very few people in the conventional educational model talk about. But in the professional world, whether you're putting a roof on a building or whether you're selling to Wall Street, your ability to communicate and to relate to the people that you serve, even if you're putting on a roof or a gutter, it might leak. And when it does, own it, be honest about it, and fix it. And we're good. That was the culture.
That's actually really awesome. A couple of reasons why. Number one, that foundation of emotional intelligence, it's a difficult thing to do, especially whenever you're wearing a bit of your heart or your emotions on your sleeve. If you translate that to everybody else, it could be a really good thing or it could be a really bad thing. Positive, really good, that type of thing works well. But if you got some bad stuff going on in your life in the background, you bring that into your business, it starts to create some drama. And that's where we'll see a lot of the contractors that we work with struggle with that, right? Like, hey, what's happening in the outside world and to them is affecting everything else in their business, and they don't see it because they're not keeping that emotion in check. So you mentioned that you're a professor at Columbia, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Are you teaching what you describe as these soft skills to college level people? Because you hear this all the time. I have 3 kids that have gone to college, and 2 of them are out and on their own, and both of them have said, the real world is nothing like what I got over there in college. My son has a degree in business and marketing, but the real world in business and marketing is completely different from anything he learned in college. So is that something they're starting to move towards now in school?
Oh my goodness, yeah. This is such a perfect entree. I teach at Columbia University. It's in New York. It's an Ivy League institution, and I'm very proud to be able to represent this firm. But here is the best part. And what I teach is in the graduate school. So I don't teach undergraduates at Columbia. I teach generally, they are adult learners. Many of them have already been in business. There's 11 different engineering majors, but try to get the dichotomy here. I teach soft skills to brilliant engineers. Ooh. And people say, what?
That does not sound like fun, Chuck.
Right. In fact, there are 2,400 students in the engineering program, and all 2,400 came out of the undergraduate model that was what I described earlier: cram, exam, regurgitate. That is the definition of how you succeed academically. It goes to the one who scores the best on the test. The interesting part about that score on the test, I don't know what you look like. I don't know what you sound like. I don't know what you do. I don't know what you wear. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters to me is how you score on a standardized test and how you score on the exam, so that the academic mark of success is rooted in a number. Okay, that's good. And if you're going to learn to be an engineer, you got to be good at those things that they teach you. But here was the most interesting part, and the gap that I'm describing to all parents whose kids are college bound. I was invited many years ago to speak to a group of engineers in the Columbia Graduate School who all aspired to go to Wall Street. And a friend of mine was a graduate of that program, and he said, would you mind coming in one day? I'm going to put you in front of 350 what's called financial engineers, and could you explain to them the importance of communication on Wall Street? And I came in and I talked about my book, which is a communication framework for how to climb a career. And people in the audience were on staff there, and they said, your timing could not have been better. We have received communication from Facebook and Google and many of the companies saying, Columbia, thank you for sending us great engineers. And then the but came. But what's happening is these brilliant engineers are coming into their careers with their aspirations, their ambitions to lead. And what happens? They get promoted on the strength of their technical competence into a job description that is radically different than what it is they did when they joined us. So immediately there's a pivot to the skills that got them here up to a point are not the skills that they need to succeed in this new job description. Because what happens, whether you're a contractor, whether you're an engineer, an investment banker, whatever that is, when you begin to lead people, you're doing a lot less of the thing that got you to succeed. So if you knew how to put a roof on, and you're now running a roofing company where you're not putting the roof on, but you're leading people to put it on, that's a different skill set and a different expectation of what you're going to do in a day. And it's the same thing. So what happens at Columbia, these brilliant engineers who score mightily on those exams are put into those leadership positions if they haven't been taught it, and they're bombing it. They didn't know. They didn't know I had to communicate. They didn't know I had to show emotional intelligence and that I couldn't just blow up at anybody when they make a mistake. So all of a sudden, Jim, this big mismatch in what they were taught in college to all of a sudden the real world soft skills that are necessary to be able to motivate people, to inspire them, to provoke change. All these things we talk about success in the world, whether it's business or engineering. Oh my God, have we just redefined what it means to be smart? Yes, we have. So the definition of what smart meant in your past is gone. That is not the benchmark for your child that graduated from college. The benchmark is completely different as toward how we are going to mark his success. And that's what emotional intelligence has really helped. And it's what I teach at the college level, Jim, is exactly the same thing that I teach at the executive level on Wall Street. There is no difference in what I teach or how I teach it. Just the difference is if one is in graduate school or one is running an operating division of 1,000 people, there's a context for what you would do in the service of that training. It's the same. It's universal.
So interesting conversation because we see this in our world too in a different vein. We're not financial engineers, which I don't even know what that is. Like
Yeah.
that
Well, it's just
sounds important and smart.
they're trying to help you figure out how do you pick what will Google be priced at on the stock market in 2 minutes. But I don't think it's any different technically than what you do. You come to the site with tools, and you are expected to construct something, and that something has a set of blueprints. It's no different in financial engineering. It's all the same.
Yeah, I think what my observation is there's a very technical aspect to that if I do this, and this will happen, and I can repeat that over and over again and get the similar result in most cases, which is a very practical type of job. Although, some you got to be smarter at some than others, maybe, or a different kind of smart. We see this a lot in our world in the sales aspect of things. Somebody's a really great salesperson. He's out there just knocking them dead, closing everybody he talks to. And the owner comes to that salesperson and says, "You are an amazing salesperson. I want you to be my sales manager." So he moves from sales, very technical and very skill oriented in a very technical and practical fashion, to management, which is a leadership aspect of things with a bunch of soft skills, communication, like you said, emotional intelligence. And he thinks just if he follows what he did over there in sales, over here on the managerial side, everything's going to be great. And he gets, wildly surprised that that's not the case. And it's usually one of the biggest mistakes we see in these companies. And it would be the same thing as a guy putting a roof on. He's putting the roof on. He's doing the same thing each and every day. This many nails, this line, pop that line, do this thing. Okay, now I want you to lead the crew. He has to do something completely different. He's got other sets of skills that he now has to put into place, because while he's been able to do that thing, whatever that thing may be, he's never coached that thing. He's never taught that thing. He's never explained something to somebody they've never done before and have them do it, which is a difficult thing to do in a lot of cases without some skills. So in your book, Climb to the Top, it sounds like you're moving them up that ladder or climbing that mountain. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. In fact, what you're describing, I want to comment on that, is I think the salesperson to sales manager is apropos to everything that I've described. It is the same thing. The skills that got you to be good at being a salesman are not necessarily the skills that are good as a sales manager. I will also say to anyone listening who's been in the armed forces, I know that a soldier who was on the battlefield has a certain set of skills, and if he or she does it well, they be promoted to general. We don't teach generals to fight on the battlefield. We teach them the art of diplomacy. Look at the skills that got him to be general. What is required once you're there? Completely different. It's the same in every industry.
And I'm guessing here. I don't even know. I haven't had an opportunity to read the book. I can't wait to do so. Maybe you'll send me a signed copy or something like that.
Of course.
But I'm going to bet that to go from that practical, technical aspect to a managerial aspect to a C-level aspect or executive, that's a whole nother step and a whole nother set of skills, or are they very similar?
It is a much more refined set of skills. And I think it's important. I lay down what the 3 skills are in the 21st century, irrespective of industry, that are the top skills that are helping people to emerge. Let me and let's set that aside for just a second. I appreciate you asking about the book, and I do want to comment on that, because in writing the book, it was really what when I set out to do it, it was all for the intent of helping people to climb careers. So the title of the book, A Climb to the Top, is used as a metaphor, because the subtitle of the book is Communication and Leadership Tactics to Take Your Career to New Heights. So let's examine the keywords: leadership and communication. I'm a mountaineer. I climb mountains all over the world. And in order to climb those mountains, I always had a backpack that had a set of tools. And I knew that if I didn't know how to use the tools correctly, it could kill me. And it does. But I also knew that in addition to the toolkit, there was always a team. And that team is critical. because you climb and you ascend with that team. You cannot climb mountains alone. You cannot climb careers alone. Anybody who thinks they can has got to be crazy. Doesn't mean you have to be best friends or that you have to fall in love with everyone you work with, but there is a certain modicum of respect and collaboration that is going to help you ascend faster. So a climb to the top as a metaphor was really written to help people look at the metaphor that to climb a mountain takes setting goals. It's one step at a time. There's no shortcut to any mountain I ever climbed. And then the third part, the important part, it can't be done alone. Now, the tools, my entire career was rooted on my ability to communicate, to be able to move people to the cause by which I'm trying to convince and persuade them to buy the thing that I am selling. So the tools then in a climb to the top, it's divided up into 10 different chapters. Each one of them is a different tool or communication technique. For example, one of the techniques is called the power of the pause.
Well done.
Thank you. I've had a little bit of practice.
You might have said that a time or two.
Well, if I had to write the book again, I would probably move the power of pause to chapter 1. Because when I meet people, students, executives, even people on radio shows, they are speaking at 100 miles an hour. And especially in New York, I'm New York based, we tend to talk faster, and we speak at about 150 words a minute. People cannot remember all of that. In fact, they won't remember most of it. They'll never forget how you make them feel. That's the emotional intelligence component of communicating. And they will likely remember the first thing you said in a sentence, and they might remember the last thing you said, but they won't remember anything in between. So when people start to speak and they're in rapid fire, just about everything is lost. So what's one of those tools? Just like I did now. Allowing the listener time to absorb my message, allowing me as the speaker to think about what it is I'm going to say next. Which leads us to another chapter that I think is worth
I think that's a great segue. I think that's an amazing segue because we need to pause. We need to give a few minutes here to one of our sponsors. We'll come right back. I can't wait to hear the second. Like that first one was awesome. Cannot wait to hear the second one. Give us just 1 minute here, guys, and we'll come right back and check.
Want more 5-star reviews from your customers? At Signpost, we make it easy for your customers to give you great reviews on Google, Facebook, Yelp, and more. Our software connects with industry-specific solutions, driving even more reviews from your customers. Drive loyalty and repeat business by sending the right messages at the right times to your prospects and customers. Message your contacts from anywhere, anytime, using text, photos, and video all in one app. Check on progress with campaigns and review generation across Google, Facebook, and Yelp. Visit signpost.com and get your demo today.
The power of the pause. We paused for just a second to hear from one of our sponsors, and they're powerful. No doubt about it. If you're trying to get engagement with your customers and prospects, Signpost is the way to go. Go check them out. Click on their link in the show notes and tell them Contractor Coach Pro sent you, and they'll take great care of you. Chuck, soon to be chapter 1, Power of the Pause. Got to rewrite the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing a book too, and I'm like, okay, order and format and all that good stuff. That's a lot of fun. So you had a second thing. You said this kind of lines up with that. So
to our listeners, the framework is there's 10 different tools. The power of the pause is one of them. But I'm going to ask you to key into what it is I'm about to say. And I want to use this as a representation of what I hear from so many people. And I don't necessarily have to coach them to hear this. But imagine one day you're in your office or wherever you are, and someone, let's just say a student of yours, comes in and has something to say. Okay, that situation actually happened, and Michael walked into my office. Michael was a student of mine, and this is what he said. So, this pandemic, like, I kind of think that, we might sort of, open like this new chapter in our like history. It's literally, like, yeah. Huh. I thought about the punchline, like, yeah. That's called the recency effect. You remember the last thing someone said to you. And then I thought about all those other noises that he made. Like so. Chapter 3 of A Climb to the Top is called Speak with Conviction. And when Michael spoke to me, there was not a shred of conviction in there because it was so polluted by noise, verbal crutches, and filler words that crowded out and drowned the very thing he was trying to tell me. And as I sat there and I listened to him speak to me in that way, I said, oh, Michael, I would not be a good teacher, and I certainly wouldn't be your friend if we just dismiss what you just said to me. This is a learning opportunity because if you walk into a meeting with, let's just say, Mike Bloomberg, and you said, or you got on the debate stage for the Republican presidential debate, and you started to lace everything you said with verbal crutches, people will stop listening to you because you're exhausting. That's another chapter where instead of teaching someone to do something, we're actually teaching them to stop doing something. Think about the power of that as if you were to train an athlete. You're training him to do things. You're training them to stop the bad habits. They both have to be there. So, this like pandemic, that's how people talk. That doesn't mean that that's okay or that's an acceptable manner by which you engage people simply because the rest of the world speaks that way. Somehow it's okay if you do. That's a very low bar. And so that second tool, the ability to eliminate the bad habits and to speak with purpose and power and enthusiasm, and speak as if you are convicted that the words that you are saying matter to you and they matter to the people that you're communicating with. That's conviction. That, Jim, is the emotional intelligence that I don't just hear the words, I feel your words and I am moved to do something.
Yeah, we talk about that from the aspect of absolute belief. If you have absolute belief in something, you will be convicted in your approach to it. You will have the perseverance when necessary, and you'll have the faith in yourself that it's worth the effort. And it's funny, it's one of those things where we're competent about something, we gain some confidence about it, it's much more likely to speak with that conviction. And when you do, people start to look at you as a bit more of an authority, maybe an expert, somebody that they can rely on when things are in a pinch. That is incredible. It was funny as you were talking about that circumstance. I felt like my mom was talking to me.
It goes to all generations.
Yeah, she was my communication coach early on. She's amazing lady. She always sent words with every single day. And as long as I can remember, word with me to school, come home, define it, use it in a sentence in this short little story.
I like it already.
And anytime I was saying or like or any of that kind of stuff, and I still do it, I try to control it. I know that it comes out of me and I know it's there. I'm much more mindful and aware of it than I used to be. But this idea of the way people speak today and saying, hey, that where does that come from? Have we just not cared as much from an education standpoint? Is it is it something social and cultural? What is it that's bringing that about in the first place? Because I don't remember it being quite that way, or maybe I'm just misremembering things because I'm older.
No, it's a little bit of both. I think the educational model, think about us as children. We're taking math and English and science. We're taking all these things in school. And to us, they're all equally weighted. We don't know any different. They all matter. So if you've got 5 courses, you're putting 20% of your efforts on all 5. But the thing is, when you become an adult, you're not doing any of all those 5 things. You're doing one thing. Now, you may do a lot with that. But the reality is, as you go through, as you grow up, you're continuing to filter all of these subjects that you learned until you dismiss most of them. The communications, or what I'm describing, is the manner by which we engage. There is no place for that in the curriculums because that's not what the educational model was meant to do. But if you think about what we do when we get out of the educational model, we're expected to do the very thing that we weren't taught. Because in order to succeed, you're selling, you're moving, you're emoting, you're trying to persuade and convince somebody, buy my house that I'm selling, buy the shingles that I am selling. You are, and this is the second chapter, Jim, is called The Power of Emotional Appeal. The word emotion is derived from the French, which means to move. So think about that. Motion. What you're doing is you're motioning, you're moving someone by my shingles, by my PVC pipe, by Kohler kitchens or Kohler bath, whatever that may be. Success comes with the ability to persuade and inspire people to buy your agenda. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean that in a way that this is how we choose to succeed. Things don't sell themselves. We persuade people to buy them. People don't buy on logic. They buy on the big decisions. They buy on emotion. And I would imagine in your business, I know I had my house built, big, beautiful house, contractor from, they broke ground. It was a very emotional thing for us. It was no longer about the money. This is where I'm going to raise my children. The roof could not leak. All those things. That's what mattered to us. We were more emotionally invested. So we wanted a contractor who felt our pain, who understood how important it was to us that this was not just a bunch of wood and shingles. This was our home, not a house, a home. There's a big difference. And I think the good contractors who treat it such that I am selling you a home to raise your children. That is a far cry from a tent that I could build in the woods that has no emotional value. And I think that's what we do. And that's what I try to teach in the communication tactics of how you show up matters, because people see you and people hear you. What are the impressions that you want to form? It's up to you. If you want to hit them with ums and uhs, they'll tune out. But if you speak to them with purpose, they don't.
100% agree with that. To the point that, people definitely buy on emotion. That would not be a true statement if not every single one of us. I mean, to a person, we walk on a car lot, which vehicle do we go to? We go to the nicest, most beautiful one that we picture ourselves in, and everybody else seeing us in that vehicle and going, yeah, he's amazing. Then we look at the price tag and we go, I don't know, right? Like, that might not be in my budget. And we may buy that one if we can, but if we can't, we start to step down instead of starting at the bottom and working our way up. And we talk about this in sales, is that people are attracted to the best and the thing that creates the most emotion, the most feel, the most joy and comfort, all of those emotions wrapped up. But when you can apply that with a practical process, the decision is aligned emotionally and logically. And when you can make that magic happen, your closing ratio goes through the roof. It's not only like, this guy's great, I can see this picture, I can see myself in that house, that's going to be beautiful. but they do this and this and this and this and this. That takes all the stress away from every example that I've ever had before in my life, which is also an emotional thing, but it's backed up by logic going, definitely got to go with this guy, right?
Yeah, no
Not
question.
anybody.
And I think there's another part of this is if you put someone in a Ferrari or if you put them in a Hyundai, both of them are going to get you to your destination at the same time. One will not make you any earlier or later than the other one. But what you're describing, and I think this cuts across every aspect of our lives, when you're with that salesman, you're going to forget what the salesman said. You will. You'll forget what he wore, assuming you'll forget he shined his shoes or he didn't. But you never forget how that salesman made you feel, how he led you to the car, how he asked you to sit in it, how you smelled the leather, how it felt to grip the steering wheel. There's nothing in what I've just described that is a feature or a function of the automobile itself, because that's not what the buyer is thinking. How do I feel sitting in the seat of that Ferrari? When you're selling a home, when I was selling Bloomberg, all I was going for is how are they feeling in the buy-in decision? And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, because as the salesman, you want to feel what they're feeling. You want to bring that matter of empathy. That's a matter of style, not technical competence, but the style of how you are winning someone to your cause because of how you made them feel, not necessarily of the features and the functions that make the Ferrari a better car than the Hyundai. And I think that is the most misunderstood aspect of our educational model. My goodness, I don't feel anything in a cram exam test that I've taken. Okay, you're got the highest grades. That doesn't speak to the heart, it speaks to the mind. And in the end, we're feeling machines. We feel first, we think second. The conventional model flips it, and it's wrong.
That is, I think you really hit on something there, because that scoring that we do in school, hey, there's the valedictorian, salutatorian, and all the top 10 and the A's, B's, C's, and D's.
Yep.
That score that we receive makes us feel a certain way, whether it's elite or, oh my goodness, I'm not so hot, right?
Yep.
But it's not a true measure of how we're actually going to turn out.
Not at all. There may be some causality, but I think that because I don't dismiss the work ethic, and I was no genius, but I had to work hard to compensate for the fact that I'm not good in math. All right, whatever. I think that everybody brings a certain ethic with you, and you decide what you want to take with you when you get out of that model. But what you're not taking with you is something you never learned, and that's everything that we're describing now. And even to my college students at Columbia, this is a revelation to them. It's like, oh my God. When they finally got out to Google or Facebook, I was like, oh my God, people are confounding. People are unpredictable. I used to think if you did A, you get B. With human beings, you do A, you might get D, F, Z. You have no idea. I'm even afraid to turn on the news. What are they going to say about the next variant? I don't know. But you can't get that out of a book. And I think, and Jim, I want to come back to one thing, and that's, we said earlier, and this is an important message to our listeners, and that's about the refinement of the leadership skills. What are the 3 key skills that are getting people to the top of the pyramid? And I say this, even though I am speaking from my experience in financial services, what I'm about to say cuts across every industry that I've ever been exposed to. And I state that because I've served on a succession plan, which means we were helping to appoint the next CEO. And we did an identification of what are the traits among this very large company that you want out of your next CEO. Turns out that there were 34 traits. And we said, well, we can't hire someone who's good at 34 things. That's just crazy. So we narrowed it down to 3. But here are the 3. And I think if anyone is listening as a guidepost to your career development, I urge you to focus on these 3. The number 1 skill set that thousands of employees asked, number 1, top of the list, must have this skill, is called grace under fire. think about this. This is the ability to stay calm under the weight of enormous expectations. Did they teach you that in school? No. It's important in this day and age because everything is on a camera now, that when things are bad and people are asking you for a response, the minute that you lose your temper, they immediately are forming a social judgment that you're not cool under pressure. Number two, the ability to resolve conflicts effectively. Think about the conflict resolution. What? Everyone who runs a company will tell you that they spent a lot of their time, and I don't mean this that the conflict is necessarily negative. It's not always negative, but there are disagreements, and they're very passionate people who often are now in a conflict because they're not agreeing. The Beatles had it. The Red Hot Chili Peppers had it. Great sports teams have it. It's prevalent, and it's often a good thing. But your ability to effectively resolve it rather than leaving it open and unresolved is a critical leadership competency. And then the third, and this, Jim, is where EQ stepped in. The third is stylistic, that in this day and age, in November, December 2021, people want a leadership style where the CEO shows empathy and emotional intelligence, and I feel your pain, and I know how hard you're working, and I know you want diversity and inclusion. We hear you, and we're doing something about it. The days of commanding and controlling employees is over. No one is going to be led by that because they'll tell you, take the job and shove it. So this is now stylistic, where you are promoted on the strength of your technical competency and you're good at that thing that you do, but that's not the expectation that your follower is looking for. They want you to be calm, they want you to communicate in a way that resolves conflict, and they want you to be vulnerable and to show them that you are emotionally intelligent, that you can read the room, that you can feel their pain. This is a leadership model that I had no idea when I was in college or even when I did grad school, how important this became in the emergence of running companies.
So, boy, a lot to unpack there, and I couldn't agree with you more. Start with conflict resolution.
Yep.
I've found, and I got some really good advice from a guy that shared this advice, one of the most intelligent guys that I know. His name's Dave Harrison. And he told me, he said, when it comes to conflict resolution, listen to what people are talking about. They're normally talking about what, who, where, when, and how.
Right.
You're listening for that. What problem was it? Who caused it? When did it happen? Those type of things. But you never hear them talking about why.
Right.
And so if you can get them talking about, well, why do you think Sally did that? Or why do you think this thing is happening at this point to you? And start digging into that why and kind of peeling it back a little bit. You take the blame off of people, because that's what people are trying to avoid, blame. They don't want blame.
Right.
And you apply responsibility, which people can accept in a lot of cases. Is that a fair assessment, or do you see it a different way?
No, I'll put a slightly different spin on it. There's a wonderful book I read many years ago, which many people have read, called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's from the Stephen Lee, and it had 7 principles. And one of the principles is I have to constantly remind myself of that. And it speaks to what you described, Jim. And it's saying, seek first to understand, pause for dramatic effect, then to be understood. But I say that because when you read the news now, we're in a binary world. We're in a red world and a blue world. We're in a black world and a white world. We're in a world of polar opposites. And unfortunately, it has caused a lot of anger and contempt among two sides that were otherwise had friendly, healthy debates. Now they're becoming personal. And what's happening, it's igniting very bad habits where we stop listening because we're so fueled with anger and derision, we're just screaming back.
And we're looking at those leaders, and they're setting the example, and we want to follow. So we are replicating that example as a group of people. I think it's awful, personally.
Well, and to your point it's in the why. Many leaders that I watch, they don't even want to hear the why. They don't even want to give you the consideration of help me to understand your why. There's so much knee-jerk reaction in the responses now because you can say anything you want, but if you don't agree with me, you must be an idiot. And this is the way we're treating people. And yet, when you just stop talking, start counting. If somebody says something to you that you think that is potentially inflammatory, what's our natural response? Fight or flight. We're going to fight you back as fast as we can because we don't want to be perceived as either weak or non-responsive. My tool to people, stop talking, start counting. Shut up. Don't say anything. Let your silence do the talking and count to 3. Now, we don't like radio silence on radio shows, but imagine 1, 2, 3 silently. In those 3 seconds, what happened? You're trying to defuse the bomb. You may not yet understand what they have to say, but you're creating the space and atmosphere that allowing us not to fight and to try to look into each other's eyes in those 3 seconds and try to say, okay, breathe. We're not agreeing, and I don't see your point no different than you see mine. Pause. Breathe, show respect. You may never agree with the other side, but the minute that you show you don't care about their point of view, you've now cut off all communication. When that person goes home, Jim, and they're speaking to their spouse about how work was, what they're talking about are the resent and contempt that they had for the individual that didn't give them the courtesy or the consideration to hear my point of view. People want to be heard and they want to be seen. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them or buckle in. But I think one obligation that we have as human beings, at least give them the courtesy and the time to tell you what they're thinking so they may try to convince you. Now, they may never, but at least if we act in a way that is courteous, you're going to get that courtesy back. If you're obnoxious, you're going to get obnoxious back. This is the human condition of push and pull. So let's reinvent the rules. We don't have to agree with the Republicans if you're a Democrat, but at least hear them out and then disagree with them. We've lost that, Jim. It just doesn't seem to. It doesn't seem to be here.
And it's so interesting to me because you'll hear this a lot. I can't find anybody to come to work for me, and the ones I do find don't want to work.
Right.
Like that. We hear this all the time, and then they go one step further and they go, "Millennials suck," or "Gen Z suck. They're lazy. They're this," and maybe our parents said that about us. I don't.
He
know.
did. Yep. Those kids today, you know.
But you hit a nail on the head. Like used to be, I could say, "Hey, do this," or go find another job. Right? I didn't have to worry about your feelings or anything like that, and I could get away with that across the board throughout industry, and especially in those more C-suite type positions. But today, if you were to do that, things are going to go awry pretty quickly. What changed?
Yeah.
Why is it different?
Yeah, it's changed in the last 5 years. Well, I don't want to blame technology, but I can't help but think that what's changed is our communication methods, where everything is now in a tweet. We're trying to distill complex things into 140 characters. That doesn't work. We're trying to distill things into a picture on Instagram. That doesn't work. We seem to have dumbed down the discourse and the dialogue that I think made even the founders of our country such giants, because they used their intellectual capacity to debate and to compromise. And that's what I loved about how this country was formed. It wasn't perfect, but it was based on a spirit of cooperation and compromise that led us to unify our efforts around one mission.
So are you saying we're coming okay, I want to get this clear. So founding fathers, debate, compromise, civil discourse, good communication, those type of things. Right. And then time went on, industrial revolution, big business, do what I say or leave. Right. Are we coming full circle back around now that, hey, we need to have this ability to communicate and civilly. Like, we can't just tell people what to do. We actually have to give a rip and care, and we need to relearn that skill.
Yeah, I think what I'm finding, Jim, is, and I see it certainly in my college students, just budding with incredible idealism. They want to save the world. They want to make it greener. We want to save the whales, save the children. I will save anyone in my path. And that's very admirable. And I think it's commendable and it's a wonderful thing. But nobody's teaching them to change themselves. How are you going to change the world, but you're not doing anything to change yourself? And then you're wondering why nothing's happening. Because instead of being introspective and focusing on the skills that'll help them to change themselves so that we can change the world, we're just too busy with our bullhorns, our tweets, our Instagrams, by just blasting out sound bites. And then people believe the sound bites because it's easy. It's easy to just, oh yeah, that's fine. When we watch the news now, it's infotainment. It's not facts. We grew up in a world of Walter Cronkite where it was just the facts. You report the story. You don't entertain us. You tell us what happened. And I think what's happened here is we've lost the art of being able to communicate in such a way that we can now make our own point of view from the facts that we've learned instead of being told what we should think. And I think if we go back to, and I don't know, I don't even know. I'm a bit distraught at what the possibilities are, but I can never give up on it. That we have put ourselves in a place in a world of sound bites and simply just dumbing down what's really at stake here and what's our ability to change it. What I am certain of is if we don't do a better job in each of us taking responsibilities to change ourselves, we aren't going to make the world greener. We're not going to save the whales. We will not save the planet because we seem to be trying to do those things on conventional models. Well, it's no longer conventional models that we've learned. The command control model is gone. That's done. But the ability to take control of our learning, to focus on what LinkedIn says are the top 5 soft skills that employers around the world are demanding. Number 1 is creativity. Number 2, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, and emotional intelligence. If anyone is coming out of college and you want to learn how to develop yourself so you can change the world, focus on those things. You may not have had any of them in college. Okay, that's cool. You can come to Columbia and you can certainly have it with me. But it's up to each individual to decide what's important to them, and what's important to you is changing yourself. And that's my message, Jim. It's not about all these things that you can learn. It's about us stop all the social judgment that appears on social media. I know it's a hard message to convey and to listen to, but we need to change ourselves in such a way that gets people to change themselves before we change the world. That's what I hope to accomplish in my book. I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, but God knows I'm trying.
It sounds like you are. You have an immense amount of experience. You obviously have been looked at as somebody that's a pillar of the community and brings this part of the game to the equation enough that Columbia University said, hey, come be a professor. It's pretty incredible to me. Chuck, this has been a great conversation. There's so much more I want to dig into. I think you and I could probably talk for a couple of days and really just wear people out.
How much time you got?
Yeah, it is so interesting, this concept of leadership, communication, your 3 things: grace under pressure, conflict resolution, empathy.
Right. Emotional intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
Well, those are the people who are exhibiting those behaviors are the ones who are succeeding. Even if you don't have a C-suite ambition, these are characteristics of a good human being. Now, forget the career, forget the ascent. Just think about when you go home to your family. What do you want out of a dad? What do you want out of your kids? What do we want out of our spouses? Staying calm under pressure. All families have conflict. And what do our children learn from us? It's stylistic. I want my children look up to me when they were in pain. I felt it, not just because I loved them. I wanted them to feel they're not alone, that we're in this together. And if I took a commanding and controlling and, oh, just suck it up and toughen up, yeah, okay, I guess there are times we have to do that. But what I'm communicating here is not just about climbing to the top of a career mountain. It's taking control of our lives and just being a good human being. And I think, I'm not saying we've lost it. There's plenty of great people, and you're one of them. And the other people in our lives, the community that we build, these are really decent people. But we're all unifying our efforts to try to go to work in the service of others' success and happiness. That's a privilege and it's a responsibility. But I think we have to be very clear on the message that we have to inspire people to take control of their lives and to drown out all the noise. And that is not an easy task. But if it were easy, it wouldn't be worth doing.
Sounds to me like you're coaching people to have good character.
Indeed, to be
whether
good.
Whether it's in business or in life, I think that concept goes a long way. Chuck, this has been a great conversation. Like I said, I wish that we can continue. I know you are on time, and so am I.
Yeah, no problem.
How do people get a hold of you? I mean, I see chuckgarcia.com. I think that was pretty clear in the background there. Climb to the Top is the book. Can you find that on Amazon, right?
You can, Amazon. And if you go to chuckgarcia.com, there's a book tab. You can certainly do there. Go to Amazon, you type in, or even you Google Chuck Garcia. It's all there. There's not a lot of us out there.
That's what I did that's what I did whenever I was introduced to you. Was I just Googled it? I said, "Okay, who's Chuck Garcia?" You know, it's like, "Oh, that guy's like, wow, he's something different. That is good. I cannot wait to talk to this guy."
We like it, and I appreciate that. And you can also follow us on Instagram, Climb to the Top. We're on LinkedIn and all the social mediums. And also, you can email me at chuck@climbleadership.com. And send me an email. Anybody who's listening, or you can hit the contact tab on chuckgarcia.com. We're here to help, Jim, and I am grateful to you for inviting me onto your show. I would like you to come onto my show as well. But I think we have just an enormous opportunity because we've got a platform here that we hope we can inspire, persuade, and provoke change in people's own change. And I just want to keep it that simple. Change yourself.
Can I ask you a question? I know we're running over. Are you okay on time?
Yeah, I'm good on time. Yeah, of course.
Do you see the beginnings of a pivot in that right now?
Yes, and only because all of that idealism is a beautiful thing. I just don't think that anyone taught so many of these wonderful millennials and Gen Zs that we sometimes criticize. I don't. You're a product of the environment that has shaped you. I just think that we've missed a few elements. Keep that budding idealism. The love you bring to the world is awesome and always welcome, and you have it. But open up your mind to be taught the learned behaviors of what it means to lead, and then redefine what it means to succeed. And I think, Jim, if we didn't have the idealism, making the world better would not happen. You need that. And we have it like I've never seen before. But we are missing a massive educational component. What do I do with the idealism before I get frustrated and fail at everything that I'm trying? And I think that's the key here. Open your mind to the possibility that your idealism is welcome, but it's only a partial way up the mountain. Now learn the skills that move people to your wonderful cause. You need their money. You're going to need their influence. You need their time. You need their network. It's a crowded world. People will not go to you just because you tell the world how much you care about making it greener. We get it. We hear you, and we're with you. But
you win
of the noise.
You win that idealistic argument with effective and compelling communication.
I could not have closed this show better myself.
If you learn how to communicate, and really, I like to use a bit of a different one, connect. Like that's what communication does. It connects me to somebody else. And
it's the same root.
Yeah, and there's more to it than engaging example. Like we have all these words and things that we apply to that, but this ability to connect and really say, hey, I'm more about you getting to where you want. Like, I see that I'm in your shoes and you want to get here. Let me help you get there. I've got some tools that I can share with you to help you achieve that. That person's going to bend over backwards to help you achieve whatever it is you're after. And the more bridges we build like that, the better off this country is going to be, I think.
Well, that goes the entire definition. And I'll repeat this because emote, M-O-T, motion, M-O-V, move. They're the same thing. The entire word was built around our ability to move. You move people to tears. You move them to open their checkbook. You move them to gravitate to your cause. That's emotional appeal. Don't try to do it on facts, figures, and logic. We're done with that. We want to feel and to be moved that what you are suggesting is a cause that we're willing to invest our money in. We won't do it on mind. We will do it on heart. And that's the message here. We have not done a great job teaching our children to come to the world with heart. We've done a good job teaching them to come to the world with mind. And we've done a bad job with the third component, the instinct, that this gut that we carry with us that often is the basis of our decisions. So instinct, heart, and mind. That's where we decide things. The mind is the last one, and yet we focus too much as being the first one. I'm trying to completely flip the model, Jim.
I'm with you, Chuck. I'm with you on this one. Whatever help you, if you need any help from me in any way, you ask. Hopefully, maybe you'll come on my show again because I got more I want to talk to you about.
We got a lot to collaborate, but I think the important part is thank you for what you do here. Your show is wonderful. To have this platform, irrespective of industries, I don't care if you're putting a roof on someone's head or selling to buy Google. We're all just we're just cheaters trying to help each other get through this very uncertain time. And I think the only way that we can do it is to show our love, our compassion, our kindness, but be tough and be smart about our decisions, because that's how we're going to move the world. And
yeah,
everything else is secondary.
Yeah, tough love, man. It works. It really does. I love you so much. I love you so much that I'm here to listen. I'm here to understand, and I'm here to show empathy, but I'm also not going to let you run me over.
No question, and nor should you. Right? We needed all of that.
All right, Chuck. We better cut these guys loose. They've got to listen to quite a podcast. I mean, what a good one! It was really great. Thank you once again for being on the show.
It's
and we'll put everything down in the show notes, the book, the website, and all the other good stuff. We share this all throughout our network of vendors, partners, sponsors, and contractors that are in our community. So thanks again, Chuck, for being on today.
Jim, I am grateful for it's such a pleasure getting to know you, but I am grateful for your time and for the opportunity to be able to be your guest here today.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. Hey, everybody. What a show. I love how it's funny. Communication. We're talking about communication, how it works and what happens. And when somebody's curious and inquisitive. And I told Chuck before we got started that it's how I kind of approach these things. And the more curious I am, the more questions I ask, the more I try to understand where somebody's coming from, the more aligned we get and the healthier the conversation gets. If you guys listen to that whole podcast, the good stuff was at the end once we started to really and truthfully connect and communicate and even disagree a little on a couple of things. Those are the things that make leadership powerful. Whenever you can connect with somebody goes, hey, you're worthwhile to know. And I am so happy that I met Chuck today because he's worthwhile to know. Go out there to his website, chuckgarcia.com. Check him out. If you are trying to learn how to not get ahead, but lead better, to truthfully impact this planet, sounds like just the guy to help you along that path. Thank you guys for paying attention to us. Don't forget, if you're trying to get better at what you do with your contracting business, go to our website, contractorcoachpro.com. Click on the little assessment button. Take that assessment. It's a no-joke assessment. Well, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to take 15 or 20 minutes. It's going to give us really good insight into your business. And for you taking that effort and doing that work, We will meet with you one-on-one and give you a true blue coaching call that is designed to help you with your business that day. It's not a sales pitch or anything like that. We want you to see what it's like to actually get some coaching for your business so you can get control of your business, to grow your business, and finally achieve that personal and financial freedom that you're chasing. Thank you so much for being here on our show today, listening in. Make sure you click that like, subscribe, rate us if you like, give us a review. We appreciate every moment you spend with us because we know that time is valuable. Thank you very much for hanging out with us here on our episode of Contractor Radio.